touch it? No. Bastard.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello.
This juice ain't gonna do nothing but make me more thirsty.
What?
It was some V8 juice that was on sale this weekend. And it just made me more
V8?
thirsty.
V8?
Mm-hmm.
When my granny told me that she puts V8 on fish and that it tastes really good, I said, Granny, this might be a time for you to be checked for dementia.
V8 on fish?
And she said, Bree, why would you say that? I said, you just told me you put V8 on fish. So that means we got to check and make sure things are okay up there. Because what did you just say to me?
V8 and fish is a hell of a combination.
Right?
It is.
Granny,
I don't like that because I just took another sip and I'm thinking about how that would taste with fish does not sound pleasant.
She said she used the vegetable one and the tomato one.
No, tell Granny no.
I told her we need to get checked. We need to get checked immediately. Because something ain't right. Something ain't right for you to say that with your full chest to your granddaughter and think I was supposed to go, oh, really? She thought, you want the recipe? No.
Wait, she offered you the recipe?
Yeah, I said, no, Granny.
I almost want to say that's low-key disrespect.
I know. I said, Granny, we got to check for neurological developments. We must.
Because that don't even sound right.
What you mean meat and tomato sauce? Like you had it separately? Or you had it together? Like you had spaghettis? I mean, peanut butter chicken, that's a common thing. Many cultures put peanut butter and chicken together. Many.
Mm-hmm.
I eat peanut soup. I make it myself. That Nigerians and Ghanaians and Sierra Leoneans and Togolese, all of them make it. And a couple of my friends taught me. So I fuck up some peanut soup.
I wish I could eat it.
You know that ain't right. They trying to take you and my baby out.
I know, I can't. That's too much peanut, you know. I can indulge in a little peanut butter cup or some peanut butter crackers on the low, but peanut soup is diabolical. So
Diabolical.
Yeah.
Mm-mm. Did you want this recipe?
What is it?
Ginger ale.
Yes, send it to me, please.
Don't
With fresh
you-
ginger?
This is fresh ginger, babes, on the soul.
Yes.
What you saying? My own
ma'am.
simple syrup.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I'll
I
be
would
sending.
indeed.
Oh, I like this one, but like I said on my live, the fucking Aldi guy got the wrong sparkling water, so it's key lime, so it's a little bit of a taste that I wasn't expecting.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of gets you on the back end, but it goes away really quickly. So I have a half of mine for me to go drive to the gas station and get a regular sparkling water.
You sounded just like a little old person.
Who, me?
Mm-hmm. The way
Why
you
do
phrase
people
that just
tell me?
now. Because the way you
People
just phrased that.
People tell me I sound like an old person when I said I gotta go on the Instagram and the
Yeah.
Facebook. Why are you
Yeah.
saying they? I'm like, cause ain't it
On the Facebook or it gotta go on the Instagram.
on
Why
the
are
face?
you adding the what is that?
You hear that shit?
Yeah, I hear it. What is it?
I
What happened?
Girl, I don't know. My neighbor and the dog decided they wanted to run up and down the hallway. These
People
people
do
have lost it. These folks have completely lost it.
because
These
my thing
people
about
need to be checked.
why would you do that? This is not
And
the
I
time to be doing stuff
This a
like
good
that.
time. And then I came out, I looked at her. He goes, I'm sorry, I was just.
I heard his voice.
I said, and I guess somebody named Ethan in my building decided that he's going to create a union to, and he wants people to be involved to address the issues that's happening in our building, the power in our building, and talk about how we're going to get and come together to get these
Oh my
people.
god.
Ethan sent it. Ethan put it right.
Right
And
in
but
the
Ethan is standing on business. He said we will unionize. Hmm. Sorry, y'all. Sorry, y'all. That was just. Usually people don't hear it, but you heard it, so I was like, I'm not tripping.
Mm-mm.
Am I that loud?
Mm-mm.
That girl, that's crazy. Oh my god, you guys, what am I gonna feed myself after this?
I thought you already
I,
decided.
I cannot DoorDash. I can't just live on cauliflower though, right?
No.
I do have two though.
Are you saying you have 2 heads of cauliflower?
Yep.
Meanwhile, we're supposed to be here to discuss this book. We have spent 7 minutes talking about everything
Okay.
but this comic
All
book.
right. Let's talk about New Masters, guys. New Masters follows the story of.
Wait, Bree, get everybody's ratings. Like, let me listen. You finna lead this meeting.
No, I was
You
about to. I was
nope.
about to do a non-spoiler like description of it.
Okay, go
That's
ahead.
what I
You
was
lead.
about to do, but I
I
don't
will
have
follow.
to.
I'm following tonight. You lead. No,
Seriously?
ma'am, because I led the I led the last one by myself. Granted, that wasn't your fault. You couldn't have helped what happened last month, but it is
Yeah.
your turn to lead. I guess I should have
New
discussed this
Masters.
prior to the
New
meeting.
Masters. It is West African inspired, specifically Niger. Huh? The Nigerians are in here. Both of the writers are Nigerian. Okay. The Nigerians said we're showing up. So, the New Masters follows the story of, hold on, because I always say her name wrong. I don't want to fuck that up.
Don't ask me because I don't remember names. Ola?
Fula?
I is it Ola for short?
No. Ola or Ola.
Ola.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So follows the story of Ola, who's a young girl. She's very technology inclined, not like me, right? She wouldn't be fighting on StreamYard and OBS for her life like I do. Y'all seen it. Ola, decided to go deep, deep, deep in that ocean to get obsidian. They're in this world, right? It's a sci-fi base, but they're in this world, or in this place called Echo, which is like the capital. And while they're in Echo, they are trying to collect a lot of obsidian. And when I say they, there's multiple characters trying to do that. So I don't want to be spoiling like that. But Ola is with her parents, and her parents are, for the lack of a better word, type of mercenaries. And they have a ship, and on this ship, they have different people who have different tasks and things that they're doing. And her mom is very worried about her. You can tell that throughout the whole comic. And her dad is too, but you hear more about her mom's worry. And one day, while her mom and her dad is having a conversation, somebody comes in and fucking rudely breaks their door. I just felt like that was way too much. I know we're not talking about the book, but the breaking of the door
Was excessive.
really pissed me off. So they
Yeah.
broke the door and they said, "Hey, there's this special thing, forget the name of it, but there's a special art artifact that I want you to find it." And the person who asked for this special artifact is a man called Ojuma. And Ojuma is a black man who pretty much said fuck his people, fuck your people, fuck they people, fuck our people. It's all about the coin yoin yoin yoin. Okay. And that's all he cares about is that coin yoin yoin yoin. However, he has a daughter who is the other main character. If you ask me, it's Ola and then Tusen, which is the daughter of the rich black man, are the main characters to me in the story. So his daughter is like, I don't like what he's doing, you know. She's trying to like pave out her own space or figure that out. But you have like multiple people in this world, even other people like the star pilots, which is kind of like these people who move in truth. They move in truth, and they kind of got a vibe that they're indigenous and they're connected to the land in a way. And these different people are trying to find that artifact that I was telling you about, because obsidian, which is a resource that a lot of people are mining and losing their life to, is starting to dwindle down and really not be as available as it once was. Sorry, I'm not even speaking right. So, as you continue to go through the story, you learn more about the artifact, who wants it, and what they're willing to do to obtain it and keep it. I think I think that's where I'm gonna stop at.
No, that was a really good description. I feel like you covered so much and really, really well. Okay. Well, let me not. This is your show. I'm just here for the
Oh,
ride.
okay. Moving forward, before we go into the spoilers, because I feel like that was a pretty detailed wrap up. Not detailed, but it was a good summary. So we don't have to spend too much on that. But get in the comments, can you put any type of black emoji if you read it, or put any type of blue emoji if you didn't read it? In addition, let me know your ratings so far.
What did you rate it?
Okay, I'm gonna tell you this. I
Mm-hmm.
read the book, got to page 50, and was like, "No, what the fuck is this? This is about to be DNF'd." And I said, "Bree, chill, restart it." And I
Mm-hmm.
restarted it, and I was like, "Oh my god, I actually really like this." So I think as it stand, I'm anywhere between a 3.75 and 4. But you know my ratings do change once
It
we start
fluctuate. Yeah.
talking. Yeah, so y'all might convince me to go up or down, but that's kind of where I'm at.
I gave it a 3.5.
3.5.
Yeah, I was like you, where I think that one of the. Are we discussing?
Yes, we are discussing now.
I do
Mm-hmm.
think that the beginning was jarring. It was jarring because you are dropped into this Afrofuturistic setting, which I do like. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there is little to no context of what exactly is happening. Like, I think that they relied heavily on the reader to eventually be able to make the connections. But unfortunately, I think when you do that too much, you risk losing your audience, right?
Yeah.
Because the first 50 pages or so, I was like, I think we made an accident.
No,
I,
straight up. I was like,
I
can
was
I
like,
DNF?
I think that we maybe did not make a good choice, but I was like, we pulled back on how much we were reading this year. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna push through. I took some space away from it, and I saw someone in a Discord had said the same thing, where like they took some space away from it and then they came back to it,
Yeah,
and then they were able to kind of vibe with it, and that was the same thing for me. I just didn't. I think that that was an error in judgment on their end, that
yeah,
they relied too much. I think in some ways it's good, because you're challenging your reader to be able to connect the dots and you're tapping into, um, the ability for a reader to really critically think about a story. But
mm-hmm,
I think when you're starting off, especially in a world that is not ours,
mm-hmm,
it is not the universe as we know it. When we're talking about like speculative fiction, that
mm-hmm.
that can you can go left with that, and I think that they did, a little bit, and you really had to trust the
The
process for this
process.
one. Yeah,
Absolutely. I
yeah.
felt like so I don't know. I don't want to spend time scrolling, but when we first got introduced, this was a couple things I thought, and you and people in the chat can let me know if I was off on this, but I was like, um, one, you are throwing too many words without telling me what they are or what these cities are. You're not giving me any information, saying
Hmm.
all these names. I'm confused. Then there were some, I don't know if you can remember, but and anybody in the chat, there was like two or three times where they would start a story and change the topic on the next page, and
Yes,
you were like,
it was gaps in the storytelling. Yes, you're absolutely right.
well, it really threw me off. And then like I like as an inspiring linguist, literally getting my PhD in it. Um, how could you cut off like that and embarrass me in front of my friends? But anyway, as an inspiring linguist, I did like when I would see like pigeon, like or like a type of Creole, like
Yeah,
what
yeah.
happened, like when I would see stuff like that, I was like, oh, that's dope. But I was feeling the gap, and I said, not Gapiana, we can't do this. But then when you get to the end of the comics, it starts telling you like this is what the city is. This is why we did. I felt like all that information should have been in the comic itself and not at the back for you to then know more details about these things. And it just made me think of like there's some, not to be like comparing like that, but you and I have read a lot of comics doing the comic book club, and
Hmm.
it's like you can definitely tell good writers from those who just started.
Yes, you
And
can.
and these are the ones who just started.
They just started.
Like you know, what's your favorite Tynan?
James Tynion.
He would have never did us like this.
No, he wouldn't.
Green would have never did us like this. Um, what's old boy from Saga would have
Brian
Brian
K.
Ron
Vaughan.
would have never done us like this. You know what the writer of Something Killing the Children would have never done us like this. So I just feel like um I feel like because I love the world and we don't always get stories like this in comics written by people from those cultural backgrounds,
Hmm.
I'm gonna stick with it because it might improve. I've seen that. I
Hmm.
came into comic series and been
Hmm.
like, I felt that way about Something Killing Children. I was like, come on, let's pick up here.
You
And
felt that way about what's
Bitterroot.
no, what's the other one we read in December?
Hi,
Deadly Class.
Deadly Class.
Yeah,
I was ready to give up.
yeah,
And,
yeah.
and then I was like, oh, this is really in their bag. I'm almost done with that compendium, but I have not finished it. I will be honest. Um, but yeah. Let's take a little break and read some comics. Read some comments.
Oh, that's me.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was like, go ahead. I was like, go ahead. Sure, go ahead. Read the.
Get to it.
Um. Okay. I'm gonna scroll up a little bit, y'all. I'm sorry. Okay, so most of the ratings that I'm seeing were 3.5 or a 3.
Okay.
And there was a consensus essentially on the like throwing you into the story
Yeah, just
and
throwing me.
not knowing. Yeah. Um,
And this is just a comment. I do know that Nigerians culturally tend to be more conservative than us Black Americans
mhm.
tend to be. However, there was a scene between the parents when she was banding up Pops. Well, you could have made that a little bit more sexual on page. Not
Yeah,
saying
I thought it was gonna go there, but it
I thought
definitely.
we were gonna go and it did a full stop, and I said, "Not
Yeah.
you edge me." Mm, mm, mm. But that was just a thought. Um,
Let's see. Okay, so this is kind of this consensus of the fact that it's easy to tell that that there were gaps, and yeah, and honestly, it was one of those. It was almost like an episode of a TV show ending, and then like you skip an episode and then you jump into the next one. So it felt like there was information that was missing, and it would jump from scene to scene
mhm.
without really giving you much context. But I do believe I can't remember. There's a story about how they came to craft this comic, and I should have been better prepared. But today, y'all,
Hey, you
today
do what
was
you can.
yeah, today was a day. But I believe that there is. Hold on, this is why Google exists.
Yeah. It's also um it's also on the first page of the last uh panel. After the last panel. I also really love the artifact. And oh, go ahead.
Found it. They were
Okay.
Creators for Creators 2019 grant recipients. So that's why I was like, I thought this was something, there was some type of prize or grant funding behind this, which is how this story got picked up. And they are newer creators. Like they've done one other story before this, which was at least Shobo is attached to another title called Buckhead, which was coming out kind of around the same time as New Mass. No, a year before New Masters, like issue by issue, it was coming out the year before and a little bit like a couple of months before New Masters was coming out. So they were very close to each other. I haven't read Buckhead. That one was done by Boom Studios.
I like
So
Boom too.
maybe not as new as we think, but also Buckhead has a significantly lower rating than um than New Masters, but it's also Afrofuturistic.
Okay.
So that seems to
Cool.
be kind of Shobo's um I don't want to say like pathway. I don't know what word I'm looking for, but that seems to be where he draws most of his inspiration for his comic works. Um
I
Go ahead.
You sure? I can remember it.
No, because I'm still trying to gather a thought with a needle and thread.
Okay.
I'm gonna stay on
Um,
after we get off this live because I really do need to fill you in because I was very close to like almost losing my
See,
thoughts there.
I knew you would need
Yeah, I'm
it.
gonna I'm
And I
gonna
would
have I'm
tell
gonna
you
I'm
with
gonna have to tell
cauliflower.
you, yeah, because
With cauliflower.
I like continue, please. This is not relevant for the internet.
You know I love you with all my heart. I'm not saying that to be, but I hope you know that.
I know. Yes, I believe that.
Better
I
fucking
believe
know
that.
it.
I
Um,
believe it.
you
If
better
nobody
know
else in this world loves me, I know you ain't
it.
Prince.
I'm the one and the two.
The
Hear
one,
me?
not the one and the two.
The one and the two. The one and the two. You see how I was about to beat up the teacher? I said, let me chill. I said, let me chill.
I said, you know what?
I was
Hold
about
up
to send
now.
a strongly worded email.
I did.
Um,
I did send a strongly worded
Oh
email
my
because that's
God,
as good as
please
I can get.
send it to me. Send it to me. But um what I wanted to say is what I loved about this comic, and I don't know if people were paying attention, and I think there's a certain cultural perspective you got to have to see those threads, meaning
Yes.
black and black adjacent, and not that non-black people won't pick it up, but did you guys catch like the benign references, the
Yes. Yes.
pre-colonial references,
Yes.
the how language changed, the indigenous stuff. Like it was just so much stuff
Hmm.
wrapped in it. And I think it also brought to life a narrative that constantly gets not constantly, but I always see that it's kind of it can be really controversial when we talk about like the black folks in West Africa who was like actively engaging in the transatlantic slave, I don't want to say route, but
I get what you're saying.
company business,
Hmm.
and it being like, this man only cares about greed. It really honed in, and I know I'm mixing my words together, so let me close my eyes so that I don't feel as anxious saying this. um but it really like came together of that thought of like, yes, there are white people who do fucked up shit and they have done fucked up shit for years, but there are also other people who are non-white who held positions of power, and because of that wealth, because of that class, they did fucked up shit. There's people in India who are rich as hell and just did fucked up shit
Hmm.
with caste and different things. There's people in fucking we know what's going on in North Korea to an extent. We don't know everything. Slave trade. Thank you so much, Jessica. So it's just like there are other people who are not white who have also done atrocious shit. But it's like something we don't talk about as much because I think that for the most part, it's been the white man leading that charge. But I think
Got you.
that but like I've always said and did a whole video on, I think billionaires are gross. I don't give a fuck what you look like. And the fact that, you know, this man told them, like, soon as I saw him get off that ship where the star pilots were that, and before that, it was this rhetoric of you can't go that's a sovereign land, not to go there.
You
This is
highlighted that.
this
Hmm.
is the place that you don't like fuck with. And he's like, look, you got an hour to give me this. I got 45 mercenaries on this ship, and I will blow all this shit up. He blew up a whole city for the capital gain. So I'm just like, when it comes to money,
It supersedes a lot of things.
it supersedes so many things.
Hmm.
So yeah.
No, I do think that it's, there's that conversation about the role that wealth
Yeah,
plays.
again. What the fuck?
Oh, the lights? Or, oh, the dog. I didn't hear
Oh,
it that time.
they're fucking crazy.
I did think that aspect of it was interesting, right? To talk
Mm-hmm.
about how um, wealth
Yeah.
is also a common ground for a lot of these issues, and that wealth will continue to be one of the great divides as well. I
Yeah.
think that it is easy, like you said, to look at things in terms of racial or ethnic or nationality, like along those lines. But
Mm-hmm.
I think now more than ever, especially because and when I did my review, I said there were some things that I think definitely parallel. These came out in 2022, right? So
Yeah.
they would have been very actively aware, not only I think of what is happening in their own country, but also globally. Like it's a great parallel to what's currently happening on a global scale.
Yeah.
And how wealth is the great divide. And if people
Yeah.
would recognize that too, in conjunction with everything else that we discuss, but that divide
Yeah.
in wealth also is a factor that will make people who are part of marginalized communities do the same atrocities or commit the same atrocities as those who are not. And
Yeah.
what was very interesting, that and also I think the concept of power, right?
And
So
corruption.
in corruption, because it took me a second to connect the dots that he was her father, right? It
Yeah.
took a second before I was like, oh, okay, so who is the real enemy here? And I feel like that was kind of a lingering question throughout the pages,
Yeah.
because when you thought about it in the grand scheme of things, nobody was making the right decision. I don't think her
Oh,
parents were making the right decisions. I don't think that he was making the right decisions. I don't think the daughter was making the right decisions. And I think when
no.
you read that ending where they talk about it is the youth who we have to rear in order to do the right thing,
Absolutely.
it is up to them. And I said that is true. And then it made me even think about when, and I hate to bring this up because I feel like now this is all anybody, which is good, but it also is, as with anything, it's like, okay, um, because it is relevant. But I say all that to say, it made me think about like the U.S.'s struggle now with cutting off
Girl, I didn't
access.
want to go there, but you went there. The
But
U.S.
it's
struggle with.
true. It's true. There's a county in my state that literally just cut um, off the access for kids to be able to use an educational database.
Ashley, one
Uh,
second. You
mhm.
said the U.S. struggle with blank, and I was like, here for you, but I cut you off, and
Mhm.
I couldn't hear what you said. So I'm assuming maybe somebody else didn't hear the word
Oh,
you
I
said.
didn't say anything. I think I just stopped and then went on to my
Oh,
next thought.
sorry.
No,
Sorry.
I do think it's the U.S.'s struggle right now with keeping up consistent and important access to information for our youth, right?
Mhm.
It is they should have access to that, and so that they can make better decisions to improve the future, which I think was very much so a parallel to when she went to, what are they called again? The star
A star pilot.
the star pilots, and when they were having that conversation, and she was saying like, basically when this whole scene was happening, it was like she has to make this decision for herself. Like you
Yeah.
have to give her the opportunity. Her head has been literally in that
Going
panel. I think that
everywhere.
panel, yeah,
Yeah.
that panel stuck out to me because she was saying like her head has literally been turned in every direction, and you have to trust that she would make the right decision with the right information, like with the information that she has. And so I think that that's one thing. Is a couple of things there. I guest lectured at a university yesterday,
Come
and
on.
one of the things that we talked about in that class was people not viewing children as humans. No, they're not adults, but these are humans with thoughts and feelings and ideas. And they are able, in a lot of instances, to advocate for themselves and say what they do and what they don't like and make decisions when you give them the information to be able to make the decisions. But we minimalize the capability of children to do those things because we want to keep them as these dependent children. And not to say that they don't need us. They would never say, like, my 5-year-old doesn't need me. She does. But my 5-year-old also can speak for herself.
Oh, yeah.
If you give her the tools and the information, she can make decisions for herself. And I think that we don't give the youth enough credit for that. But where the US is struggling is that we won't even give them all the information
Mhm.
so that they can make
Mhm.
the
So
right
much
decisions.
gatekeeping and
Yeah, so we're keeping them in the dark, and you expect them to become quote unquote um productive citizens, or whatever the US likes to call,
yeah,
whatever terminology we like to use nowadays. I
yeah.
do
I
think that
just say fully functioning adult when I talk to parents. I'll be
yeah.
like, I get it, but you want to make them make even their own mistakes because they have
Yes.
to grow up to be a fully functioning adult and able to make decisions
Mhm.
for themselves.
And I really like that I got that connection out of it, especially because we literally just had that conversation yesterday
Mhm.
about what we determine to be what is appropriate or inappropriate for a child. And
Yeah.
it's not a blanket thing, because
Yeah.
every child can handle things at different ages. Every
Uh-huh.
child has a different level of emotional intelligence, and so what works for one may not work for the other. It's not a one size fits all type of situation, and I like
Yep.
that we see Ola kind of want to make one decision, not having all of the information, right? She
Mhm.
sees that her parents are struggling. She wants to help out. She wants them to finally take a stand to do something that's going to help.
Mhm.
But she didn't have the key pieces that she needed. And then when she got another piece of information, she's like, wait, never mind. I'm not going to give you this tool because now I know something else that's added to the story and I need to be able to change it. And so
Mhm.
I think that that piece of it is something that I've really, really enjoyed, and something that is ultra relevant to what we are experiencing as a global community. I think the book banning and book challenging is very US centric because of how extreme it is right now. Not saying that it doesn't happen anywhere else in the world, because censorship is a huge thing. I think that it's the scale at which it's happening, how quickly it's happening, is something that is unique to the US in this moment, in this time, right? Um, which mirrors a lot of shit that's happened in other countries historically. If people would just crack open a history book, this is not the first time that a nation has ever been through this.
Yeah.
Or that a
I
government has tried to do this, but never. I digress, because at this
But
point,
sometimes you don't know. I've been on the side of TikTok where the girls from India, they're not in India, but the
mhm,
girls from India who are outside of India are creating TikToks talking about how folks from India successfully fought back against the early
mhm.
stages of fascism as we are in America and how we can learn from them. And I'm like, wow, they got to stop screaming in this hallway.
I can't hear them now. If that makes you feel, I do think that
Oh no, somebody pulled the alarm in the building. I gotta move. I'm
yeah, that's
sorry. Go ahead.
unstressful.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm not leaving though. Go ahead.
I do think, that it's tragic to see how much of this stuff can be so relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Tragic in the sense that you don't want it to be relevant. I
You
should put
don't
it
want
that way.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's tragic that you don't want to be able to be like, to connect the dots in the way of, not just I'm connecting the dots of the story, but I'm making actual real life connections to what you've laid out in this book. And so I think that because I got a lot of the intention behind the work,
Yeah.
and I got where they were going with the story, and how they were setting it up, and what the ultimate purpose of why they were telling this story, um, I gave it a 3.5, but it definitely did feel new. It felt like,
Mm-hmm.
we're just getting into our groove of learning to write comics, and
Right.
um, this is what we're putting together. And I do think that for an initial start, outside of the other one that like he's written,
Mm-hmm.
I do think that it was a solid read, and the artwork was fantastic. I love the artwork.
I do too.
I really, really do. So I think this one is definitely one where I think you do have to trust the process. Like that's the only way I think that you will really appreciate this one, is by just sticking with it, and you'll get to a point where everything starts clicking into place. But I don't know. I mean, the way that it ended, I hope that maybe we would get something else, but I have not seen anything anywhere online about,
Them
because
continuing.
it's that's kind of a hell of a cliffhanger, right?
It
Like
was. Yeah.
I I do think that we get this full circle moment where, mom is like, no, it's everyone's fault that this happened. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's my fault, it's
Yeah.
your fault, it's your father's fault. Like, it's our
I
responsibility.
love that. That was one of my
Mhm.
favorite parts that I wanted to get to because it was like, yeah. You are part of it, babes. Like for me, when people grow up with parents who they don't like, you try your hardest to not be like them, and you end up being
Just like them.
just like them. So when I was in Peace Corps, I used to complain to my dad about Ukrainians. Just complain. And he would say, "Well, baby, whether you like it or not, the people you work with, the people you're around, they are in you and you are in them. So it's up to you to figure out what's useful and what's not."
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
just was like, damn,
Are you listening?
hold on 1 second. Winnie is telling me, she was like, did you hear there was some type of announcement and they were like, do not take the elevator, take the stairs.
Do you feel like is it automated?
So this has happened several times, and they've said that there's been kids in the building who pulls
The emergency thing.
Mhm.
Because I know some emergency systems, once they pull, they'll say, like, make, they'll have a voice recording behind them to say, like, remind
Yeah,
people to take the stairs, do not take the elevator.
yeah,
That's awful that the kiddos are out here pulling. No, we didn't freeze. We were just literally that quiet.
yeah. I was like trying to read it. I was like,
I guess because we
uh,
both just stopped moving.
yeah. I was like, I'm trying to make cauliflower, and they're out here fucking around. Crazy. But yeah, continue what you were saying. When he said, I'm in my apartment too. I don't know what to do. Me either.
No, no, no. I do think that it would be nice to get something else after that, because like you said,
Yeah.
it is nice, that accountability part, and realizing that there we're all a part of the problem. As much as you may try to distance yourself from the problem, inevitably we all hold some responsibility in some way, in some capacity. And I like that kind of messaging at the end, that we've we have to accept accountability, because you wanted it because you didn't want Earth to be less than Jupiter. And we have these people who wanted it for money, and I wanted it because I didn't want to be like my dad. And yet here I am. I'm literally still, like, to your point, I didn't want to be like my dad, but at the end of the day, I'm exactly like my dad. And it hasn't, and it's sad that it took her almost losing her partner for it. And sometimes it has to be that drastic. It almost took her losing her partner for her to be like, never mind, forget it. Forget it. I'm done. But are you still listening? You're muted.
Sitting there chatting, mute.
I
Um,
saw your lips move at one point. I said, "Oh."
but I just feel like the more you try to be in opposition of something and someone, the more you can. I think, and this might be a niche thing, but I think that when we talk about like white supremacy and we talk about how it's being perpetuated and enabled, and I remember in college when someone was like, yeah, we as black people engage in white supremacy. And I was like, no, no, no.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
mm,
Capitalism, imperial, like just disengaging. Okay. So it's like you gotta know your history, or know, or like, understand things so you don't repeat it. But then here we are. Repeatiana.
I mean, let me tell you. Did I tell you about how I read a middle grade nonfiction? This is just to your point about um like history repeating itself. I it was a Kate Messner History Smashers book,
Mm-hmm.
and it was plagues, pandemics, something. Anyway, it was about the history of infectious diseases.
This sounds familiar, like a nonfiction I put on my TBR that I haven't
Oh
gotten
yeah,
yet.
it was great. When I tell you it was fantastic. One of the most accessible, I think, middle grade nonfiction books that I've read because of the multimedia format aspect of it. Really enjoyed it. I went to go, I think, either write my review or mark that I had completed it. And I saw I don't know whether she was an educator or it's one of the two, educator, homeschool mom, whatever. Um, and she said, I'm trying to gather my thoughts and try to be kind on the internet today. I promise
Not
you, y'all,
kind.
I'm trying to be kind. She said this book was great up until it got to the point about COVID-19, and then it got too political. Now, mind you, hear me on this. What was covered before COVID-19 was the flu epidemic. Okay? Literally. Early 20th century. When I tell you the way that Kate wrote that, they are direct mirrors, COVID-19 and the flu, the way that it was handled here in the States.
I'll
Exact,
never forget how atrocious that was.
but
People
when I
literally losing their minds.
literally paralleling to each
Mm-hmm.
other. People, and I
Mm-hmm.
had no idea, and it's interesting because, like, I think for me as a history major, because there's so much information and so many different avenues that we could take, there were some things I only learned about in a very broad context. And I would say the flu is probably one of those, right? Um, Especially when we're not getting into the epidemiology of everything and stuff like that, which Kate
Mm-hmm.
does to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when I tell you, I had no idea that you literally had mayors, governors refusing to abide by the mask. This is early 20th century, refusing to abide by mask mandates, holding parades, having people in their churches, um, gathering in large groups when the government is actively saying, please wear a mask, please do not get into
Mm-hmm.
groups together, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to kill each other. And I said, holy shit. Literally, literally, the same thing happens 100 years later. And y'all literally repeated history, did the
Yeah.
same damn
Yeah.
thing. And what blew my mind about the review was that she went to say that it was fine until you get to COVID-19 because it got too political. Baby, the flu pandemic was the same exact thing. So, what do you mean she got too political? You just felt like you didn't like that your preferable um political party was being called out for not asking their constituents to be mindful of their fellow citizens.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, it's your fellow human at this
Mm-hmm.
point. Fuck the citizen, your fellow human.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is very much a thing, and I think people just don't, it hasn't clicked yet that if you literally do not know your history, you are
Mm-hmm.
bound
You're
to
bound to
repeat it.
repeat it.
You're bound to repeat it. We've
You're bound to
already done
repeat it.
this.
Yeah,
We've
because
already done this. I cannot, I can, and I think seeing that in real time, and then me getting a more detailed account of what we were doing as a society during the flu pandemic in comparison to what we did at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, it's
Mhm.
like, y'all, this is the same thing. It's this, you literally, it is the same exact thing. Is it
Yeah.
because
And
you don't know, and you could care less to educate yourself and know your history and the histories of others to not make the same mistakes.
mhm. Mhm.
But here
I
we
don't
are,
know.
and
I don't know what it's gonna take. But I also, I mean, I'm always talking about this, but I also like truly blame our education system.
I do too.
I mean, there's lack thereof now, but um, I truly blame it because I feel like not a lot of people have the ability to understand patterns and pattern what is it, recognition, there we go. And I feel like having a class that's talking about those things would be really helpful. Having class that talks about how many times some X has happened in history is really important. And we don't have those. Because I'm not going to lie, my history classes in
Mhm.
high school wasn't given everything. And you
No,
shouldn't have to go to college in order to get additional history lessons. Like, that's ridiculous.
and even then,
And,
I
and,
will say,
everything's behind a paywall. Even when you want to look up, peer reviewed articles or things, like everything's behind a paywall.
which is, I think that even that comment that you made just now is really relevant to this comic at hand as well, where they're saying
Mhm.
that this is information that should be available to all people,
Yeah,
regardless of where they come from, their status, their education level. This is their information to have. Um, and it shouldn't be given to one person to control who should
yeah.
and should not have access to the information. But it
But
is
the
very much.
dad, oh,
Hmm?
go ahead.
No, no, go ahead.
But the dad was like, "You stupid for doing that, but I'm still going to be rich and come on top because it's not about everybody having access to it. Yeah, let us all have access to the information. That's
Hmm.
great. But we also need resources so that we can do something with
So you could
that,
decode it.
like with that information. And he billionaires understand that. It's about resources.
I
Everybody
think
can have access to things, but it's about a resource.
I think that boils down to even what I had to deal with today, right? And resources are not always monetary, right? Like something is, and I say the word decode intentional, like that's very intentional on my end because I went to a thing at my kid's school today, which I was misled about what it was, and
Them hoes.
I would have never gone. That's part of my frustration. My day started off wrong. I started off very wrong. But I think that, so basically I should give you better context. I went there thinking that this was like a time to read 101 with your child, right?
Yeah.
Granted, you know that that's a thing that we do regardless, but
Yeah.
I knew that if I didn't go, your niece was going to have my head on a platter, and
You
I
know
didn't
it.
want this.
You
I didn't
will
want those
read me
problems.
my books.
So I was like, well, I'll go. And when I went, I realized it wasn't a event where we spent time reading with our children. It was an event in which they told us how to read to our children.
Huh?
Now, I must say that um, that was difficult for me to sit through for a number of reasons. One, I in my profession, that's my profession right there.
Right.
And two, it was hard for me to sit through from a lens of empathy, right? Where it's not that it hadn't clicked, but I think that seeing it in real time really made me feel defeated and angry and frustrated at a lot of different people. And I won't say who specifically on here because I genuinely, I just can't. Um, but what I realized is that it was someone there who was attempting to help, right?
Right.
but also wasn't giving out 100% accurate information
No.
because she had the tools. She only had but whatever tools she had, right, to
Oh,
share with
Jesus.
these parents and caregivers. Um, and then you have parents and caregivers who had no tools at all, right?
Yeah.
And then I think about something as simple as not being able to, which is something that I struggle with in this book community a lot, is that these kids can't, their parents and caregivers can't afford to give them an at home library, right?
Yep.
But in some way, they've been discouraged to use a public library, or there's an barrier there in access as well.
Yeah.
And so they were passing out books, but these were books that like were more focused on teaching your child how to read and not how to love reading. It what
Oh,
you
it
get what
kind
I'm
of felt
saying?
like a chore. It kind of felt chore
And they were
vibe.
talking about not it making it not a chore, but when you have these books, and these are the only books that you can afford, right? These are books, for example, that I would never add to our collection because of the quality.
Okay.
These are books that you would use as tools, not saying that they're not useful because they are, but these are books that you would use as tools to help your child learn how to read, but it doesn't allow them to see things like rare words, the concept of storytelling, um, being able to pick out things that you love and enjoy, interest, right? It's very, I found these books at Dollar Tree. This is what's available. This is what is given to us.
Not the
And
Dollar Tree. Not the
and
Dollar Tree.
and Dollar Tree does have some good books. I don't want to
I mean,
discredit
on
them in it.
occasion.
Yeah, on occasion they do.
On
But
occasion.
but I do think that it it showed me too that there are people who are unable to, if given the information, they're unable to decode that information, right?
No.
Um they're unable to unpack it. They don't know what to do with the information that you have just given them. And you can give them everything in the world, but also if you don't have the comprehension skills to decode and unpack what someone has given you, what use is that tool to you?
Right.
And I thought that that was an interesting thing for him to say, like, I have the money to decode, but I think decoding is beyond a finance. Decoding goes back to education as well. Have you been taught how to do? Because I can tell you a million different resources. I can give you everything that I can, but
Right.
unless you're able to comprehend the information that I'm giving you, what use is it to you?
Yep.
And so I was watching in real time, right? People who were the same age as me, older than me, younger than me, being given these tools and resources, and watching them literally in real time look like this, like I have no idea
Right.
what you're talking about. So bad to the point that I personally said, if you're having trouble navigating them, and then it becomes an issue of pride, right?
Yeah.
Because then I had to be very careful about, I am a community member.
Right.
I don't want to seem like I'm above it because I wouldn't be here if I thought I was.
Yeah.
But I see confusion. I see wanting to do something and fix things, but not knowing like where to start.
Yeah.
And so I offered, I was like, if you would like me to assist in any way, if I can help you navigate the public library system, I'm more than happy to help.
Right.
Because you've put your tax money into it, and I want to make sure that you get what you can get out of it. But
Right.
sometimes I think that even hearing that from someone is like, well, does she think she's better than us?
I was just about to say that. That little
Yeah.
mess.
So then it becomes an issue of pride. And so there's a lot. It's a lot. And I think that was kind of like a reality and a gut punch for me to kind of see that this morning. Like I was like, yeah, so I can give you everything, but if you can't decode it, what is the point?
Yeah.
What is the purpose?
What
Because you're not gonna know how to use it.
I mean,
And
that goes for literature. You using all of this weird ass jargon for what?
to
Not
keep to
every
keep to keep people out. I feel like sometimes
exactly.
I do feel like people do that where um it creates another barrier. It creates the inability for a barrier, so people are incapable of understanding you are what you're trying to provide in terms of information. I don't know. That's why I wish there was a second volume, because these are questions I think that they could possibly answer
Yeah,
with
and the
with
dress for sure.
yes, and address within a second volume, right? So what happens now that this information has been put out into the world? Like, is it now a race to decode what this means? You
I
know,
thought I
like you
thought
said, it I think it would be, and like you said, this was, the references, um, the historical references in it, and the tying of historical references to possibly like an alien community, and the languages becoming intertwined and
yeah,
mixed with each other, to now we have a language that no one can really read,
yeah,
right? It's above what we're capable of doing, and it made me think about a lot of languages that have been lost. Um I've been reading maybe quite a few indigenous picture books that have been coming out, right?
yeah,
And there's been a handful that have been coming out. There's one that just came out last year that um, was bilingual, was I was surprised to see one that had been reviewed. Um,
huh.
and we got it, and in the back, the author had talked about the loss of indigenous languages, right?
Yeah,
And the attempt now to preserve those languages. And so it made me think about how quickly you can lose a language, um, and then all the information that is lost with that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not just a language, it's culture, it's history, all of that gets lost. Um,
yeah,
when languages can't be preserved or people are stripped of their languages.
yep, yep. Sometimes and like I've shared what I'm about to say with another friend, but it's like sometimes there was this black woman on TikTok, and she said it way more eloquently than I did, but she said sometimes she has to actively work on her relationship with white people, because if she sits there too long and think about all the language and culture and people that was lost in her family ancestry,
Hmm.
she gets really fucking angry. And it's like, and she's like, I understand, the descendants currently, and that how it's like a little bit different. And she said it more eloquently than I can say it right now. But there is sometimes, especially like for example, yesterday I was like, yeah, fuck this whole day. So I was in a grocery store, and for people in the chat who don't know, I am 6'1". And I'm not small. What kills me is it's never any other person but white women who run their carts into my body. Like, this happens often. I'll go to a grocery store, go to TJ Maxx even, and it's like they don't see me and run right into me. This woman was like, "Oh, I didn't see you there." I'm like, "How you didn't see me there when you and I were giving each other eye contact?" As I
Exactly.
watched you run into me.
Exactly.
And that happened at three different fucking stores within a 2-hour span. And I was just like, I am completely like, it's the like, even if I'm walking and they will not move, the expectation is for me to move.
Hmm.
Then I'm bumping hard shoulders into people because they won't move. And I'm tired of doing that. So now I move. But still, it's just really fucked up. I don't really know how to explain it, but it's really
No,
fucked
no, no. That's a good way. That is true. It is. That's a good way to explain it.
up. Yeah.
I do. We have been on for an hour, y'all, so I'm gonna go ahead and start wrapping this up. I do hope that maybe I know that this was grant funded, so and it does take a lot of money to produce. If you have no idea, it does take a lot of money and resources to produce a comic. Um, and this one was grant funded, so it does make me think like, is that a barrier for them to continue the series? And it very might well be a barrier, which is super unfortunate. Because I do think that with time and practice, like um they could be really, and like I said, I gave it a 3.5. I do think that with time and practice they could be really, 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 really great.
Yeah.
Just thematically, the way that they approach things thematically, I think is excellent.
Oh yeah.
um
I
but I
even
think
did
just
a little thing on the side of like showing all like I wrote like all the themes I was seeing. Sure there's more, but yeah.
yeah, I do think that working on pacing a little bit and making sure in that storytelling that they aren't any gaps, and
Yeah.
that you keeping that in mind. But I think that they have the workings of a very, solid series. But
Yeah.
unfortunately, hmm,
Very solid.
yeah, I do think that they have the makings of a very solid series. So
Yeah.
um, I hope that eventually or one day this is something that they can revisit in the future. But not a bad pick. Very solid pick. Rough
Yeah.
start, but
Rough
it rough
start.
start. It was a rough, little rocky start, but it did get better. Keep in mind that our next meeting is going to be March 26th. Um, that is the last Wednesday of the month, and it will be once again at 8:30 p.m. EST over on this channel. Our reads for next month are two middle grade books because it is middle grade March. So we're reading Raina Telgemeier's adaptation of The Babysitter's Club by Anne Martin. Um, this is the start of the crew. It's Christie's great idea. Um, and how the Babysitter's Club actually starts, how it's formed. They I don't know, y'all, to be honest with you. I don't know if they're doing a graphic novel adaptation for every book, but it low key kind of feels that way right now. Um, but that's like over 100 books, so I don't know if they're going to continue to do the adaptations for everyone. But they sell very well, so they may. And then the second one that we're going to be doing is the uh Makers Club. And this one is a graphic novel that explores the joining of art and science. And it's two stories in one. So, in the first one, we're meeting a character by the name of Nadia and Priya, who are paired up for a science fair. And then in the second one, we are meeting up with two other characters, Young and Akila, um, as they reconnect. They're old friends that reconnect at their new school, putting together fashion design and engineering. So I think that's really cool because I know a lot of times we see STEM, but a lot of the kids now are also into STEAM, where that art element is thrown into the mix. So both of those should be available if you've been using Hoopla. Both of those should be available on Hoopla. Bree and I are very, very intentional about that, making sure that we are making these selections as accessible as possible. But definitely check there to see if you can find them. As always, we thank y'all for joining us, and we will be back in a month. Good night, y'all.